My binder's so full.
I offered to
It made me snort right there.
I really like that
So
part
if
of
you're
the
going
house,
free
and
agent, you can tell.
that shows that.
What?
Say you're a free agent, put you in the grill.
You got your waiter.
Maybe you can get extra credit for charity work.
No, I think I'm gonna be better off being a free agent.
Alright,
Dylan, you got lucky you're not measured, just. You may be sad now. It's harsh.
When you say passive, that means like
Oh, yeah.
like solar panels are passive because you build them.
Here goes. If you go back to cave dwellings, mud huts, grass thatch buildings, Amazonian circle of sticks, plaza houses. You can go way back in history. People have been using passive solar technology pretty much from humans living in caves to humans living in holes in the ground to humans living in trees, humans living in small shelters, big shelters, right up until the 50s. By the 1950s, things started to change. By the 1970s, we all started to live in stupid houses. If your house was built after 1971 or so, it's very likely you have a stupid house. I have a stupid house.
What constitutes that?
Houses where you can't stay warm without adding energy all the time, and houses where you can't stay cool without adding energy all the time. In the early 1970s, we really thought that fossil fuels were going to be so cheap that it was kind of irrelevant. Like, hey, look, you can just turn on the air conditioner to cool off and electricity's cheap, why not? And we could build houses so inexpensively. It was like, oh my God, you just put some sticks and some drywall and some stucco and you're there. And in terms of home construction, modern homes are so easy to build. Like, I can do it. And you don't need like a lot of heavy stuff, and you don't need a lot of intelligence, and you don't need a lot of tools, you know, it's just like nails and like, hey, all right. Of course, after the early 1970s, when we all got into this new style of home building, energy started to get more expensive. Nowadays, not only is energy really expensive, our dominant style of housing is spreading to places where it gets really, really hot or really, really cold. And so now that it's common, like in Santa Barbara, you could basically live in a tent. I've done it for years. It's not a big deal. Yeah, I lived in a glorified tent for many years.
Did you live in a yurt?
Dome. But you know, like, our Santa Barbara housing style is like common in Michigan and stuff. Like places that get really, 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 really cold or really, really, really hot. And the only way to keep a human alive is to just pump in energy 24/7. And as the price of energy starts to go up, when you're using it 24/7, the cost of living is really escalating. My house in total temperature management energy probably costs $300 a year. Because I run the heater a little bit in the winter. I don't even have air conditioning. But if you had my house, cookie cutter, and just transport that to Minnesota or Tennessee or South Dakota or something, that would be like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, like maybe 10% of my salary, maybe more, for just heating and cooling that house. We got into another bad habit when we thought energy was cheap. Wacky thing is, like, a high-tech modern house, like if you want to get all fancy with passive solar, it's just an old school house. Like my grandpa, who built his house literally with his hands from bricks that came out of the brick factory he built with his hands.
Out of bricks?
He lives in like a totally old school, like 1800s home. That's pretty much like the dream of all modern architects. This building, which was probably built, I don't know, anybody know this building was built?
A long time ago.
This one?
Yeah, 60 years ago, maybe 50 years ago? I don't know, a long time ago? It has elements of passive solar that are really nice. You all notice that there's sunlight coming in? I opened the blinds. I heard somebody say, why are the blinds open today? So I could show you something. Like, the fact that sunlight is coming into this room and making it warmer in the winter, that's not an accident. In the summer, you'd be fully shaded by now. Because in the summer, the sun is higher, so that eave blocks right to my wall. So in the summer, we're always in the shade, but in the winter, we get light to create warmth in the morning. That's like, yeah! And that's like free, obviously. You don't have to move anything. Just like maybe open the blinds. So solar houses are houses where you don't have to add any energy to keep it warm in the winter and cool in the summer. They have like basic ideas that you can all remember for the rest of your life, and like you can use these in your tent or in your home or in your future architecture firm. We're gonna design them, we're gonna build them, and then we're gonna test to see if you got it right. First, look at part 1 on your solar house lab assignment. It says you have until blank to do your research. I reserve the right to change this, but I'm calling it February 13th right now. As a loose target, I'm going with that. I might change my mind.
So we have a while.
So you have, a month. That day, you're going to bring me a packet with 2 posters and a key. Please look at number 3. Number 3 says, your plans must include Your plans must include a 3-dimensional color rendering, a page full of 2-dimensional black and white construction plans, and a key that explains how that all works. Back in the day, I used to require this all on a single sheet of paper. You can see that back in the day, this was like 15 years ago, you would do the three-dimensional color, the construction stuff, and the key all on a single paper, but not anymore. For a while, I did this on 2 papers. Break this one away from that one. But not anymore. Now we're going for 3 papers, and so there's 3 separate things, and I want to explain what to put in all of them. So number 2, you got to follow all these design guidelines. They're right there. Look at the very bottom line of your first paper. It says you can assume that noon sun is 33 off the horizon in winter and 54 off the horizon in summer. That works like this. If this is your house, 33 degrees off is winter. 54 degrees off is summer. You probably want to draw that real quick. You know something I'm proud of?
You made a boat.
Well, I have a boat, but I made a pilot house for it, and I finally cut out the windows. And that was really stressful for me, but I kind of like them. There it is from the front view.
Good job. What are you naming it?
The boat's called Reveille.
That's weird. I would have said Sheila.
But I'm proud of me. You look at boatyards all the time, huh? Facenda?
He lives in one.
What was the what? Oh, the meme? I was not planning to show you this, but I'm glad to show you this.
That's not Kermit.
Text conversation with one of my colleagues.
Was it Colin Wells?
Not Colin Wells, no. So there it was before the cutouts. I'm super psyched. Super psyched. Okay.
Is that an example of passive lighting?
Actually, it does have a little passive solar. Anyway. So you have until February 13th. You have to follow all those design guidelines, including a winter sun at 33 degrees and a summer at 54 degrees. You have an architectural rendering. It's one full color, 3-dimensional street view that includes landscaping. Did I already show you these examples before? No, I haven't shown you these?
No.
These are construction plans. Back when it was 2 papers, now it's not.
Raising 2 pickers.
And this is the corresponding street view. Notice that they titled their house the name of my assignment, which is not correct. I already know it's the Solar House Lab. You're supposed to name your project.
Can it be whatever we want it to
Project
be?
Jose.
You can call your house George for all I care, but the house needs a name. Usually architects give it like some kind of a powerful or quirky name. So here you go.
Upside down.
Construction view. Construction view kind of crappy. Too small, 3-dimensional, full color street view, too small.
Ow.
Too small construction view. I don't want it to be double-sided. Everything has to fit on one side, please.
Wait, so we're doing.
This is a perfectly okay enough key. Pretty darn good construction plans, but I stepped on it. But a kind of aborted full color. That's three-dimensional enough. It has enough stuff. It's just not color. They lost a whole point from that. That's like a order of the credit. Coloring should be easy.
So we're supposed to. The
If it's
thing
white,
says 2 pages, but is it one? Are we doing the one?
What? That's what they said too. What?
So we're doing the one with 2, not 1, or the one with 1, not 2?
You're doing 3.
Well, yeah, with the key, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Full color, three-dimensional. This is about as small as I would accept. Back in the day when we had it all in one, I like it when the house fills the whole paper.
What's that bucket, bro?
Tree. What do they call it? The growing tree. Construction plans. Again, they titled their house the name of the paper. So the
It says
title is
California.
like, yeah, exactly. So Castelliona would be the name, that would be the big title. Construction plans. Jose's frat house. Because in case you didn't know, I have very strong feelings about the Greek system.
Good or bad?
Pretty hilarious. 3 kids working together on this one. First kid did the house. Second kid did the background. Third kid did the landscape. Happy little trees. They didn't title it. Please don't make penis houses or boob houses.
Domi home.
Yeah, it's just awkward. It's just awkward. Please don't make penis houses or boob houses. I really like that. Just needs a title. You know, the assignments evolved over time. So I've just kept a few papers here and there sort of at random. I don't necessarily keep A+ papers or whatever. As a matter of fact, the really good ones usually end up in an art show, but yeah.
What type of stuff do you want on our key?
I'll explain. I'll elaborate.
I see your original chimney back there.
3-dimensional street view, colored in crayon, I believe.
That's it.
A little raggedy attempt at 3 dimensions. A pretty high 3-dimension view. Kind of whack. This kid cheated.
Wait, cheated.
Check it out, check it out. These were drawn on acid.
Look at the sun.
Did they tell you?
I don't think any of those kids has ever done acid, but that's just how I interpreted their paper. Yeah. A bad attempt at bilingual crude naming, but I like the trees.
What does that say?
3-dimensional color.
I like when they
Please try to fill the whole paper. It just looks weird when the house is like half the paper. Here's some construction views. This is the kid who cheated.
How do you cheat?
That's tracing for
He
sure.
made his father's intern do his homework.
And how do you find out?
Oh my god.
He admitted to it.
Like after he got a grade?
Yeah, when he turned in the papers, I didn't know. I was
Yeah.
like, dude, way to go! You're really turning it around. Yeah, like 18%. And I was like, dude, I guess this is like something that you're into, right? He's like, yeah, I'm really into it. I was like, good job, dude. Keep it up, man. Second semester's looking up. And then he like went on having an 18%, and he brought that model.
This one.
Yeah, yeah. Well, stand up. Show everybody that. he brought that, and I was like, dude, that's the nicest model I've seen all year.
Except for the fact that the thingies are bones.
And I was like, so how did you build this? He's like, yeah. And I was like, what'd you use for glue? And he's like, crazy glue, Elmer glue stick. And I was like, what's the walls made out of? And he's like, what? So we discovered he was cheating. He's like, all right. And then he just laughed about it. No, I gave him the F he deserves. I mean, honestly, it's on reward. When you take credit for doing something bad things happen, but you deserve it. Two-dimensional construction view is kind of crappy. I really like the beginning of this color. Check out this one. This person is now a tiny home builder.
No way. I believe that.
Yeah, a lot of you know her, Maddie Shelton. Shelton family. Shelton teaches English at junior high.
Oh.
Other Shelton. This girl's dad is the brother of that Shelton. This guy is the guy that makes all the cool architectural stuff in Santa Barbara with the colorful tile and whimsical metalwork. Look, their model, the girl learned to weld with her dad so that she could make metal trees for her model.
Would you say that your assignment, you can take credit for her career because of this assignment?
I think that she was destined for greatness long before she met me. I don't take credit for anybody's greatness at all. If any of you succeed in life, it'll be in spite of me, not because of me.
I'm gonna shout you out.
That's kind of how I feel about the whole educational system, as a matter of fact. Like, this doesn't set you up. Like, it just proves you can take it.
Teach us how to do taxes.
You don't need help with taxes.
You're Jewish, dude. Come on.
Yeah, you've got people for that.
Just pay someone, yeah.
Check it out. Not very good. Perfect A+. Again, titled for the part of the assignment, not for the house. And here's the keys right here. They just say number 1 is the thermal mass. Our floors will heat up when it's sunny and stay cool in the shade.
Those 10 things.
And it's exactly how you use those in your house. It's explaining how it works in your house.
So you don't have to explain like what the walls do unless they are one of those like components.
So you've got this list in your paper, and now I'd like to talk about that. Take out a sheet of notepaper, please. If you look in the construction plans, it says top, side, front, back. The key says a separate sheet of paper which identifies and explains the 8 passive solar elements in your plan. Remember that you have to give your house a name. And now, I'd like everybody to look right there. On the first paper. Sorry, my daughter keeps changing my words. Right there. I want to talk about that. There's a list of 10. You need 8. My suggestion is try to include all 10. Because if you get a couple of them wrong, you can still get full credit. Like if you try for 10, you can pass on 2. And it's really easy to draw all 10, but when you get to building, there's some that are harder to model. So my suggestion would be draw all 10 of them And then if your plans get full credit, you can skip this one and this one. 6 and 9 don't really model very well. I'm going to give you a little bit of intro to each of these, and then when you do your work, you'll have to research them more to understand how to build them. I strongly recommend that you make an interesting house. Like square houses that like look like all the other houses, it's just not, it's not fun, it's not interesting. If you make a really wacky house, I'll give you extra credit, like that mouse house got like an extra point. And I had a tree house that was 3 separate buildings up in a tree, and they actually modeled it. It was like that tall on a base like from me to Sadie. And it had like 3 separate pods with like drawbridges, like Ewok houses. They got a lot of extra credit. That was really ambitious. Yeah.
So when you say like you have to have at least 8.
Yeah.
If you do 10 on your house and you try to do 10 on your model and you like don't do you don't do too well on your drawings, like your plans, and you fail on a different 2 on your house, you still get full credit.
No. Your model has to test what you planned.
Yeah, but I'm just saying like you do all 10, you try to do all 10 for both, and you fail like on 2 on your plan.
If your plan doesn't have this, you don't get to model that. So you can only model the ones that you got credit for.
Will we know which ones we brought credit for before we build?
Yeah.
Okay.
It looks like this. So in one color you get credit for the plans, and then you'll bring the same key with your model, and then you're like, look, here's the solar house, and then here's the walls, and here's the... Alright, get ready for this. Number 1, thermal mass is stuff that stays hot when you heat it or stays cold when you chill it. Like if you ever walk on concrete early in the morning, it feels really cold. Or like if you ever touched like a stone fireplace after the fire's gone out, it still feels warm. That's thermal mass. Once you get it going, it keeps going, just like inertia. You all know that like once you get a tanker ship moving, it keeps moving because it has a lot of mass, it has a lot of inertia. Thermal houses, once you get them hot, they stay hot. Thermal inertia. Number 2, I have noticed over the years that people who are bilingual do better with this one. In Spanish, insulation is the same word as isolation. And to be isolated, to be separate from something else. Insulation is just keeping one temperature isolated from another. Like a wetsuit doesn't give you heat. It just keeps your body temperature away from that cold water temperature. So your heat isn't lost because your temperature is now isolated from the water around it. Like a cooler does not cool down your soda cans. It just keeps that temperature separate from the hot sand at the beach. Usually, please look up, my recommendation to most of my students, the easiest way for you to do this is floor, walls. I think everybody, yeah.
So like, our walls on the project would like just be the insulation. Like we wouldn't have to actually put like a foam.
Correct. So, in terms of passive solar, color is not a question of which colors you use. It's where you put the light colors and where you put the dark colors. The winningest option is white on the outside, black on the inside. We get to laugh about race. Please look up. Please look up. Please look up over here. In the summer, that house is really cool because the exterior is white. But in the winter, when the sun is lower, light comes into those windows and heats up the house because the interior is black. See that?
Which house?
This one.
The interior is white.
You're white.
Oh, you're white.
So like, if you put this right here in Santa Barbara, and it faces south, you can ask the kids that are over here, sunlight is hitting all the way to the back wall in there. So there it is. On a normal day in winter, that house is warming up so fast because the inside is catching all that light, just like our classroom. See? This was built using passive solar. In the winter, sunlight comes in. In the summer, when the sun runs higher, we're shaded from that. So we don't have this heat gain in summer. We only have heat gain in the winter, which is the only part of the year we want heat. Isn't that neat? That's not a coincidence. It's kind of a no-brainer. Like, people had different caves and cave dwellings back in the day. Like, we wanted to heat up in the winter, so we're going to live in the one that has the light hitting the back wall during the winter, so it gets warmer in our cave. Like, okay. The question is where you put the colors, not which colors. You want light in most places, dark in very specific places. Number 4. Whatever shape you give the house, there's a sweet spot for where you put the eaves and the awnings. Squat down low. See if you can look out these windows. The further back you are, the more difficult it's going to be to see this. But that's in a really specific spot.
What?
Like 5 or 6 years ago, these beams were starting to rot. And so they had to cut the foot back, the beams back by like a foot, and I could tell in here, my classroom got way hotter in the first couple weeks of school and the last couple weeks of school.
Good or bad thing?
For me, it's kind of irrelevant, but I think it would make a bigger difference if I didn't have blinds. Bigger difference if I didn't have blinds. So here's the secret. Everybody, like, children, where does the sun rise and set? In the rises in the
East.
sets in the only if you're at the equator. Like if you're like in Ecuador, it rises in the east, goes straight overhead and sets in the west every day, all year long. Here in Santa Barbara, actually, it rises like over there, which is southeast. And it sets, watch me, like right over there, which is southwest. And in the winter, it doesn't even get that high. In the summer, it gets a little bit higher. But, watch me, because of this, you can play that edge of lighting. Whatever shape you have, if you have a flat roof, or if you have an angled roof, you can figure out where your windows are. And you can choose a specific length based on the angle of your roof so that summer light is blocked, giving you a shady, cool house in the summer. But winter light gets under that awning or eave and goes into the house, so you have a bright and warm house. This is where you put the black floors so that you can radiate heat, like this one. When I show up in first period, the sunlight comes all the way back to here. So in the earliest part of the day, we generate the most heat. And we kind of stop building heat by fourth period, which is sort of what you want, because by fourth period, we're all pretty warm even in winter.
Are we assuming our houses are being built in this environment?
So you must build your house in this environment. So your 33 and 54 are fixed elements in your pattern. And then you can build these triangles. I can try to help you with the math, or you can do it on your own, but somehow you got to prove to me that you measured. This light and this light, you have to measure that. Summer light can't get in the window, winter light should. So you'll have a height and you'll have that angle picked by your design, what you choose to make your house. And so then you'll have to set that length by calculating. I'm going to try to finish. How many minutes do I have? One? Crap. Somebody remind me where we left off today?
Cross-benefit.